Greetings, R. Frederick Grill here with another episode of Christian News and Views. This is episode 287, Thursday Bible Talk. Well, Christmas is approaching fast, so I am going to be talking about the birth of our Savior. We'll get back to our normal course of Bible talk after after Christmas for sure. It may actually wait until next year, but we'll get back to it. Well, today we're in the next few episodes, we're going to be looking at the birth of Jesus Christ because I can't get it all in one episode. I'm going to be using a book that I want you to see here. It's What's True About Christmas, and it's the updated version of it. Book I put out, and it goes into details. It starts actually, um, we go into the Old Testament, and then there's a lot of things that we talk about there. And then in the chapter that says the visitation, that talks about when Gabriel visited and uh, visited Mary and all that happened there. Well, I use a story form in which to convey the facts. But by putting it in story form, I think it brings it out a little bit better. Excuse me, a little bit more, perhaps, for you to understand and pull all the facts together. But the facts themselves are there, and I quite often I give references that you can go look up on the internet. So we're going to talk though to when and where Jesus was born. Now he was born in Bethlehem of Judea, and we have here, and that's talked about in Micah 5:2. And so you can look that verse up. But it's very specific as to where the Messiah was to be born, which was Bethlehem of Judea. This is significant because another Bethlehem was located not far from Nazareth. This Bethlehem, the one that Micah talks about, is a little bit of ways away, but there's one much closer that he could have gone to, but he didn't. Well, that wasn't the right one. The right one was for his family tree was Bethlehem, the city of David. And so that was, and I'm not sure that the birthplace of David anyhow. The get some of my terms mixed up as to whether that's the city was Bethlehem or Jerusalem. It's one of the problems with old age folks. You tend to forget things every once in a while. But anyhow, what I wanted to convey to you was that it was a far place away. So that brings us to when was Jesus born? And this is the thing that we really want to zoom in on. Why is it important? Well, first of all, I believe that knowing the truth about his birth is far more exciting, far more interesting, and you see it opens your window of understanding, biblical understanding to it. So let's take the birth of Jesus is celebrated on December 25th, but the actual birth is now believed, and put that in quotes, we don't know it to be true, but it's believed and by many to have been September 11th, 3 BC. Now that's the month there is also known as Tishri or Tishri 1. I think the one is the first day. So their months didn't follow our months. They overlap a little bit. So, and it's also, by the way, that time period is also called the Feast of Tabernacles, which I think you'll find that's very important too. There are many reasons for this date, and I will be covering some, if not all of them. The purpose for this is not to do away with Christmas, an unlikely event, but to bring knowledge to the table so that when we celebrate Christmas, we do so with a true understanding of our Savior's birth and of the events surrounding it. I have an article from an internet site called truthandscripture.net, and I researched one of the reasons for this date is that Tishri 1, and I refer you to the ancient Jewish calendar, which I believe it should be in this. Look here. In some of my books, I put, yep, there it is. It's in the very front of the book, the ancient Jewish calendar. So Uh, Tishri is actually, um, let's see, the equivalent of Tishri would be October in our month, which is right after September, by the way. um, and so his birth that is in that range right there. Elah, which is September, and Tishri, which is October. But they follow into that term, and they believe that it was uh, that was it. That was the time when Jesus was born. In Revelation 12, 1 through 6, we have a future event taking place. But there's a thing that pops up in verse 6. It says, scholars have noticed that in verse 6, it reads, "And the woman fled into the wilderness where she hath a place." Now, because of that word hath, it is believed by these scholars that verses 1 through 6 describe the birth of Christ. This is too deep to get into on our own. I'm just referring you to it. Um, it's way too deep for this book that I wrote or this episode. But the evidence points to a period between August 27th and September 15th. And further evidence points to September 11th between 6:18 p.m., which was sunset on that particular date, and 7:39 p.m., which is what they call moonset on that date. This is a worthwhile study for someone who truly wants to know and understand when our Savior was born. This date is also interesting since it is the same date that the World Trade Center was destroyed. And its significance? Perhaps Satan wanted to hide the fact that the date was Jesus' birth date. Sort of a sleight of hand, sort of distract us. However, this is just a speculation, but I thought it an interesting side note there. There is additional evidence regarding the Magi that will be touched upon in the chapter of the Magi. The year 3 BC aligns itself with other scriptures, such as Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 5, which says this: "And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. And all went to be taxed, every one into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem." I was right the first time, wasn't I? The city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. The Roman king Augustus Caesar announced a taxation during his second governorship of Syria, which was of Cyrenius. This taxation was also a time of registration when people would proclaim their oath of allegiance to Rome. This then is why Joseph and Mary went to Bethlehem. Now that's the practical reason. There's another reason. God wanted it to take place in Bethlehem. It was set. God already had all that set. But here's the physical, the earthly, if you will, reasons for it. Further, Bethlehem was only 6 miles from Jerusalem, where Joseph would be required to visit by Jewish law in 2 weeks after Jesus' birth for the Feast of Tabernacles, which commemorated the 40-year-long sojourn of the Israelites when they left Egypt for the Promised Land. All Jewish men were required by Jewish law to attend the Feast of Tabernacles. While the distance from Nazareth to Bethlehem was a mere 70 miles, the mode of travel made it much more difficult than it would be today. So 70 miles to us today is, well, a little over an hour's drive. But they couldn't drive. They had to use carts, camels, mules. And being as how they were poor, they used a mule or a donkey. So it's more likely it would take days. It is likely that he had a donkey upon which Mary rode since she was now in her 9th month. How many hours or days it took, we are not told, but traveling on foot with her riding on a donkey and in her 9th month suggests it could have taken at least 4 days, possibly more. It would have been very, very hard on her. But when they finally arrived and saw the crowds, Joseph realized with a sickening reality they would have a problem finding a place to live. So he's in a story here, he sought God's direction. We're not told that. That's my own imagination at work, but I believe that is true. He was a godly man, and he would have wanted God's direction. So then they went into the town itself, and you got to just use your imagination. All these animals are coming with these. It wasn't the smell of gasoline that they were smelling when they went in there. They were smelling something far different. um, it consisted of a mixture of sheep dung, human sweat, and meals being prepared. The combination would make her, especially being in her ninth month, nauseous. So they went into town. Now let's look at the innkeeper. The inn may not have been an inn. Certainly not in the idea of a hotel as tradition paints it. More likely a house with rooms and a lower room for the keeping of animals. Or there could have been a corral outside. The innkeeper himself is often talked down as a lowlife. Here was a pregnant woman, and he wouldn't rent a room to them. How terrible. Well, I believe the innkeeper gave up the room for animals precisely because she was 9 months pregnant. It's possible the innkeeper rented out the place for space for animals just as he rented rooms for humans. So he sacrificed income for her income comfort. Below is a brief story depicting how it may have happened. We shall call the innkeeper Ari and his wife Serena. Those are fictional names, and the story is fictional, so we won't get into that. But there was a debate between the two of them, and their concern for this obviously very pregnant woman, and they needed to find a place for her to stay, and they decided upon the corral. And so they were taken to it, and they were shown it. So the fact is that first of all, I think the picture that I've drawn is a little bit more correct than the one we usually hear, but that's just my personal opinion. But here's a fact: Joseph and Mary came from Nazareth to Bethlehem, and in 2 weeks, Joseph would be going to Jerusalem. God had it all planned out for them. God also prepared for them a modest place for the Son of God to be born. Such humility would characterize Jesus' entire life. Does it strike you odd that the King of the world will be born in little more than a barn? It gets more interesting. And so on our next episode, we're going to be looking at the manger, and I think we're going to be looking at the shepherds as well. And we'll eventually get to the Magi. And so got some talking about there, sharing, but I hope this is giving you a better picture. And if you in your town have anything called Experience Bethlehem or Bethlehem Experience, it's called both. And I've also heard of people calling it the Journey or something of that nature. If you have a play that is depicting the Christ birth, by all means, take your family to it. We have one here at Tri-City Baptist Church in Port Charlotte. We have one, and we had it last weekend. We're going to have it again this weekend. And the best thing to do is to, if you live in the area, you probably come across somebody's probably giving you a track or something. But what you can do is go to it. It's the dates are now 12th, 13th, and 14th. Starts at 6 and goes until 9. Now that's not the whole play. There's actually about 4 different plays going on there. We call them tours, and you walk through this. It's an indoor-outdoor tour. Some of it's outdoor, some of it goes through the tents and so forth. But it's not in a building per se. And they go through there, and there's a different tour every 15 minutes. And you can go online and go and get your ticket. I'll put this here so that if you have it, you can maybe you can do it on the screen. If you take that and you take that picture of that QR code, and that will you can get in and get your ticket for free. It doesn't cost you any money. It just it confirms for you a particular time, a particular tour that you can take and be a part of that. So that is something that's exciting. It takes, the last one is this weekend, 3 days. There's four every hour over a 3 hour period. So that's 12 different tours in one day. And so I'm involved in that ministry myself. It's a church-wide ministry, and you are invited to it. If you live in this area, you don't have to be in Port Charlotte. You don't have to be part of our church. Just come and enjoy the story of the birth of Christ. Well, actually, the life of Christ starts out with him as a baby, but follows it all the way through. It's really exciting. It's for Christians and non-Christians alike. If you like the Christmas story, you don't have to be a Christian. You don't even have to be a Baptist or anything like that. Just come and enjoy the stories that opens up to you. You will come away and you will be amazed. It just brings the Bible alive. Well, you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode.